his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. That's when I looked. I didn't go through his phone because I was insecure. I went through it because it wouldn't stop buzzing, over and over, vibrating against the table while he was in the shower. And after the fifth notification in 2 minutes, I finally picked it up just to see who kept texting him that late. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize and a message preview that said, "I miss what we did last night." My stomach dropped. But I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was a joke, maybe I was misreading it. So I unlocked the phone using the code I'd known for years and opened the messages. And that's when I realized this wasn't new. It wasn't a misunderstanding. And it definitely wasn't harmless. There were weeks of texts, late night plans, inside jokes, photos that were never meant for me to see, conversations about me where I was referred to as still clueless, and messages about how careful they had to be because I was always around. My hands were shaking as I scrolled and saw timestamps lining up perfectly with nights he told me he was working late, out with friends, or too tired to talk. And suddenly, every canceled plan and unexplained mood shift made sense in the worst way possible. Then I opened one last thread and saw a message sent just an hour earlier that said, "She almost caught on today. You need to decide what you're doing." I heard the shower turn off. I locked the phone, placed it exactly where it had been, and sat back down, my heart racing, realizing he had no idea that in the next few seconds, everything he thought he was hiding was about to collide with the truth. And I still hadn't decided whether I was going to confront him or wait to see how far he was willing to lie to my face. I stayed seated when he walked out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, steam still clinging to his skin, acting normal like he always did, like nothing in the world was wrong. And for a split second, I almost convinced myself to stay quiet, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but the weight of what I knew sat in my chest so heavy I could barely breathe. He smiled at me and said, "Everything okay?" And the way he said it, calm and careless, told me he truly believed I was still clueless, still the person he could lie to without consequences. So instead of answering him, I asked if his phone was okay because it had been buzzing nonstop. He froze for half a second, just half, but it was enough. He laughed it off and said it was probably work, probably group chats, probably nothing. And I nodded like I believed him while replaying the messages in my head. The jokes, the photos, the way they talked about me, like I was an obstacle instead of a person. I told him I needed to talk, and his face tightened, not with concern, but with annoyance, like I was interrupting his evening. And that was when I realized this wasn't just cheating. This was comfort, routine, entitlement. I asked him how long it had been going on. He didn't ask what I meant. He just sighed, sat down, and said, "You went through my phone?" Like that was the real crime, like betrayal was secondary to privacy, and that answer alone confirmed everything. I told him exactly what I saw, the messages, the dates, the way he lined up lies so perfectly they could have been scripted. And as I spoke, he kept rubbing his face like he was exhausted by me, like my pain was an inconvenience he hadn't planned for. Then he said the sentence that broke something in me permanently. "I didn't think you'd find out like this." Not "I'm sorry." Not "I messed up." Not even "I didn't mean to hurt you." Just that. He admitted it had been happening for months. Admitted it started when we were going through a rough patch. Admitted he never planned to stop, only planned to be more careful. And when I asked if he loved her, he shrugged and said it wasn't about love. It was about ease, about not having to explain himself, about feeling wanted without effort. I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because it finally made sense why I'd been shrinking myself to fit into a relationship that was already occupied by someone else. I asked him if she knew about me. He hesitated and said, "She knows enough." That answer told me everything. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and told him I was leaving, and that's when panic finally set in. Not because he loved me, but because his routine was about to change, his comfort about to disappear. And suddenly he was apologizing, promising therapy, promising honesty, promising things he should have offered before he got caught. I told him it was too late. He said I was overreacting. That was the second thing that broke me. I walked out and didn't cry until I was in my car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, realizing I had given years of my life to someone who measured loyalty by convenience. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I messaged her. Not to scream, not to threaten, not to compete. I told her exactly what I found, sent screenshots, dates, proof, and ended it with one sentence: "You deserve the truth too." She responded an hour later and said she didn't know, not fully, that he told her we were basically over, that I was emotionally unstable, that he stayed because he felt bad leaving me. Reading that hurt more than the cheating, because it meant he didn't just betray me, he rewrote me. She thanked me. She blocked him. She said she was sorry. And for the first time, I realized the villain in this story wasn't another woman. It was the man who benefited from everyone else doubting themselves. When I went back for my things a few days later, he was different, quieter, smaller, suddenly aware of consequences, and he asked if there was any chance we could fix this, if we could start fresh. I looked at him and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. I told him I wasn't angry that he cheated. I was angry that he thought I'd stay, that he underestimated my self-respect so badly he believed I'd accept being an option. I walked out for the last time without slamming the door. Weeks later, I found out he tried to spin the story, telling people I was dramatic, that I went through his phone for no reason, that I pushed him away, and instead of defending myself, I let the truth do what it always does when you don't interfere. It surfaced, quietly, completely. Because the kind of person who cheats and lies doesn't stop when one relationship ends, they just move on to the next person who hasn't seen the pattern yet. And me? I stopped questioning my instincts. I stopped apologizing for needing honesty. I stopped confusing love with tolerance. His phone buzzing didn't ruin my relationship. It saved me from staying in one that was already dead.